This week on the Hollywood and Toto podcast, she's back. Yep, talking about Rachel Zegler. She's on the campaign trail for Snow White, and she's ignoring the first rule of holes, which, of course, is stop digging. We talk with Phelim McAleer and McElhinney. They're the driving forces behind October 7th, a new, powerful production that looks at the October 7th attacks from the survivor's point of view. Taking the show on the road to universities across the country, and of course, the first order of business, making sure everyone is safe. We'll get more details on that. And of course, it's October, it's Halloween season. We're going to give you recommendations for 3 horror films you may not have heard before, but I guarantee you're going to like them when you see them. I think you'll agree they're definitely worth your while. Well, actress Rachel Zegler is in the news again, and that's weird because that's the way she rolls. The actress who's best known, sadly, for starring in a movie that's not even out yet, the upcoming Snow White live-action update. Well, she got a lot of curious/bad publicity about a year or so ago when she started talking down about the source material. Snow White, well, that's antiquated, it's dated, it's weird. It's not really empowering for women today. We're going to change it pretty aggressively, aren't we? Now, I'm paraphrasing, but only slightly. And of course, it caused a whole controversy within the Disney realm. People were up in arms about it. I mean, it's a big kerfuffle about nothing. But at the end of the day, when you're an actress trying to promote your movie, you want to be uplifting and positive and say how much you enjoyed the process and how the story inspires you. And maybe we're doing something new, but we can't wait for you to see it. Well, she didn't really say that. She basically trashed Snow White, which pretty sure is a beloved story in American culture. Of course, lots of attention was paid to that. Now we learned that there were some reshoots involved with the movie. They initially made it dwarf-free, and that caused a consternation on social media. Now they've gone back, and I believe they've added basically animated dwarfs to the film because we can't hire little people and give them extra jobs in Hollywood. It's a mess. The movie's coming out, I believe, in March or so of this coming 2025. But now Rachel is back talking about the film, and no apologies from Rachel about what she said. It's doubling down. And just to give an example of what she said, I'm going to read it verbatim so no one can accuse me of taking her out of context, because that's what she's saying people are doing with her previous work. I've watched women get torn down my whole life, my whole career. We'll watch it in the election that's coming. We're going to witness that for a long time, I fear. Sometimes it can feel like we're going back. It certainly felt that way when that was happening. Later, she said, in all honesty, it made me sad that it was taken in such a way because I believe that women can do anything. And I also believe they can do everything. Oh, I've never felt so empowered from my female friends. Have you? Just ludicrous stuff, man. Ludicrous. Now, I want to draw some parallels here. I think Disney PR should have pulled old Rachel aside and said, listen, hey, you're a young woman. I understand your passion, but we're trying to promote a movie. There's about $1 zillion poured into this. Can we please be more uplifting, more positive? Can you steer clear of the culture wars just a little bit? Maybe say something nice about the original Snow White cartoon and how you can't wait for people to see the new edition? That would be nice. And I'm pretty sure that didn't happen. And we know it didn't happen because look at what she just said. Again, first rule of holes, stop digging. Well, she's got a shovel. She's apparently a very strong young woman because she is digging the hole aplenty. Now, contrast that to Gina Carano. Of course, she was on The Mandalorian a few years ago. Very popular. They talked about a spin-off series with her character, Cara Dune. All goes well, right? Well, then Gina Carano said some things on social media that were not politically correct, not woke, not progressive. Disney PR couldn't beat down her door fast enough and said, excuse me, Miss Carano, maybe you want to say something different. Maybe you want to meet with a whole bunch of LGBTQ representatives within our studio and have a conversation. Imagine that experience. Talk about one-sided. Well, Gina Carano basically said, yeah, no, I'm good. And then they fired her. And of course, that situation is involved with a lawsuit with Carano against Disney going on right now. We'll have to see how that shakes out. But the bottom line is that Disney had no problem trying to correct a colleague, a peer, an actress, someone in their employment who was saying the wrong things. But when it came time to Rachel Zegler and all the bad publicity she's been stirring up around the Snow White update, they didn't say a thing. It's so odd, isn't it? They were up in arms about Gina Carano, and they couldn't care less about what Rachel Zegler's saying. Now, Gina Carano wasn't damaging the brand, wasn't attacking the show that she was on. She was doing nothing of the kind. She was just speaking her mind in a very general way, reflecting the views of a lot of people. Rachel Zegler was trashing her own project in a way by saying the source material, it stinks. That was allowed to continue, and I can only imagine what she'll be saying in the weeks and months to come. Who knows what's going to happen with Snow White, whether it's going to be a good film, whether it will make its money back, whether it will be a disaster, or maybe this is all Twitter nonsense and the real people in the real world will go and see it and enjoy it. We'll have to wait and see. But if I'm Team Disney, I would be worried sick about the response to this film, about all the millions they've poured into it, because they may not get it all back. Now, I don't want to stifle Rachel Zegler. She can say what she wants, but there's an unwritten pact with celebrities these days. You talk to the press to promote your film. You want more people to see your film. It's a very simple equation. A plus B equals C. If you trash the source material, if you antagonize the fans, if you speak in a way that just distracts from the subject matter and creates a whole new situation that is unpleasant and toxic, not a good idea. Again, I'm a First Amendment zealot. You can say what you want. But if you're going to go and spend your hard-earned time and money to go speak to the press and you're not helping your film, it seems a little counterproductive. So, have to wait till next year to see how good or bad or indifferent Snow White is. But just know for now, Rachel Zegler will be saying many more things about it, and we'll be here to share them, to laugh at them perhaps, or maybe just to say, oh, Rachel, not again. Conservatives are actually having a moment in pop culture. I know it sounds crazy, but it's mostly true. We just had Reagan in the top 10. We had Am I Racist in the top 10. We had a new God's Not Dead movie crack in the top 10 as well. All these projects really probably wouldn't exist maybe 10 years ago because there was no path forward. There were no distribution studios that would greenlight them. Hollywood certainly wouldn't tell these stories. But you know what? Someone was telling these kind of stories back then, and that's Phelim McAleer and McElhinney. They are genuine pioneers in the right-of-center content space when it comes to pop culture. Now, they're Irish filmmakers, they're journalists, they're muckrakers. They're the kind of people who see stories that are not being shared, and they want to share them themselves. They've done it multiple times in the past. They made a feature film called Gosnell, directed by Nick Searcy. They've also made the production Ferguson, which looked at the Michael Brown death and debunked a lot of the narratives that the press told us about that situation. They did another play called FBI Lovebirds that looked at the Russian collusion hoax and some of the main players behind the scenes. It's what they do. They tell the stories that aren't being shared. They use crowdfunding to get the money for them because often conservative bigwigs don't want to dig into their pockets to support pop culture. So they go right to the source, the people, and the people respond again and again. Now, the couple's latest production is October 7. It's a play that is based on actual transcripts from survivors of the October 7th attack by Hamas. It's called verbatim theater, and it really does cut the knees out from under critics who may want to complain this is biased or this is untrue or this is just fiction, this is propaganda. Oh no, it's from the source themselves, and that matters. Anne and Phelim are very shrewd when it comes to this tactic. I think it's a great idea, and I think even more storytellers could fall back on it. The play was out in the New York City theater, I guess about a couple of months ago, but now it's hitting the road. It is going to universities across the country. The first stop on the tour was Princeton. Thankfully, nothing happened, but we talk about the security measures behind the scenes to make sure a production like October 7 can happen without incident. And I say that, of course, because look what's happening across the country. There's violence. There are attacks on Jewish people. There are students who are Jewish who are being chased off campus and told they can't come here. It's unnerving. It's alarming. It's also undercovered by the media, but that's a story for another day. So one of the things that the play is doing is introducing these themes to college students who may be blissfully unaware of what the heck happened on October 7th and the atrocities that were committed by Hamas against the Israeli people. So we talk about the security, we talk about the purpose behind the play, we talk about the general scope of right-leaning pop culture. Again, Anne and Phelim are pioneers in this space. I want to find out what they think about what's going on right now and what they have planned for the future as well. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Phelim and Anne. Again, I couldn't be more grateful to the work they do. It is vital. It is important. Pop culture matters. That's the whole reason why Hitcast exists. It's the whole reason why they do such amazing work, because they care, they're smart, and they realize if you're going to let the left have the entire pop culture playing field to themselves, then certain stories will never get to the public. And that is a crime. Well, Phelim and Anne, thank you for joining the show. It's so perfect that you're not only producing this production, but bringing it to colleges across the country. It makes perfect sense, and it scares me because we've seen so much violence that's been going on in recent months with this situation. Can you talk about that angle as far as protection, security? It's something you don't want to discuss, but it seems like something we need to discuss. How has that gone down so far, and what precautions have been in place?
Well, it's a massive concern. It's one of the biggest concerns. We were when we did the New York run, we were the only play in New York that needed a permanent police presence. I think we're the only play, probably, I don't know, in recent history, maybe there was one in the 60s that needed a permit, but it's the first play in New York in decades that needed a permanent police presence. And, think about that. In New York, a play, about Israel, about Jews, needed police presence. What kind of world are we living in? I think New York is home to the biggest Jewish community outside Tel Aviv, but it's unsafe to put on a Jewish play, an Israeli play, giving voice to Israelis in New York. And also, we had our own private security with airport-style scanners, etc. And we had, I can say this now, we didn't say it at the time, we had an armed security guard in the theater every night. Mm-hmm. So there was someone there, I think they were an off-duty police officer with a gun in the audience, because that's what we had to do to ensure, to make the actors comfortable, that they could concentrate on their art. So that's the level of security you need. Mm-hmm. I think when you look at who's the aggressor and who's not the aggressor, I'm not sure a play about Palestine or Gaza, from a Gazan's perspective, I'm not sure they would need a police protection outside. I'm not sure they need armed security guards inside. We hear, I'm not sure a play about trans rights would need police protection outside. They wouldn't, but yet they're the victims in this world, and you have no, and again, it goes on. You talk about security. What about career security? Lots of actors didn't want to do this play because they feared it might harm their career. Yeah. That is not a problem if you were going to do a play about Gaza. That is not a problem, if you're going to do a play about all these liberal issues. So there's many aspects to this security story.
Now, when you think about the play itself, it's been out for several months. At least it debuted earlier this year. Now It's doing a college tour. What have you learned through this process? I mean, I think a lot of this you expected. You expected the potential for violence. You expected actors to be leery. You expected emotional reactions from the crowd. All that, I'm sure you're both savvy about this arena. You expected that. But what's been surprising to you about the way it was received, the way it was covered, the reactions?
Well, the mainstream media, and what do you think of that?
Yes. Bizarrely, like as Phelim says, New York City, the home to theater, the New York Times, the paper of choice for probably most of the Jewish community in New York, and they just couldn't find the time, in 6 weeks to come and see the play. Somebody did say they might come, and then somebody was sick or somebody, whatever. But it just didn't feel right, given how important this story is. Given what was going on in the world, given, just the whole, every part of this, in fact, the idea that this wasn't news to the New York Times, the paper of record, it's very telling and very disappointing. And I'm sure was, shocking to a lot of people. Other things that shocked us, Phelim. I mean, I think a small little detail that I thought was interesting was, and I won't get into too many specifics here, but the number of Jewish people who read the script but wanted to change it. Who read the script, which was verbatim, and said, we should tone down. Maybe we should tone down the language a bit. That's like, you know what? This didn't, no, actually, this isn't how it works. That's not how it works in journalism. You don't like what the quote is. You know what? Let's just change it. Let's tone it down, make the person look better or look less angry or look more conciliatory. That was kind of, I think that was a surprise. I think we were surprised by that. And that only came from Jewish people. But it kind of reinforced for us the reason that maybe we were the only people to do this. Two Irish Catholics might be the exact people who needed to do this.
Also, I remember someone, a Jewish person also, but I think this is a wider malaise. They said, what this play, this is when they're at the script reading level, this play, what it needs is a journalist character to put in some context. It's quite funny. We three journalists.
Funny, but it is at the same time.
No, we three journalists are laughing at that. It's very interesting, right?
Yeah.
Now, lots of journalists
The last thing you want is some journalist going very wisely, making some kind of wise statements,
which are lies.
The truth is that the people who we spoke to in Israel and the voices that people hear when they watch the play and hear it on stage, they need no filter of any kind. They don't need any filter of any kind, and it's a miracle that they spoke to us, given that it was just, literally days after these attacks, people recovering from the loss of family members, the loss of their homes, all of their possessions being destroyed, being very uncertain about the future, just in a horrific state. And then on top of all of that, for two Irish people, by the way, and I don't know, I'm sure you're aware that Ireland has now got itself very much a reputation as the most anti-Semitic country in Europe. With good reason, by the way, with very good reason. So we had, for the first time in our journalistic careers, having to apologize for being Irish, and people were very understanding and very kind, and actually were delighted that we had come to speak to them. But that was an extraordinary situation.
Before we move on, I want to circle back to one point. You mentioned how the New York Times didn't seem the need to cover your production. That's not isolated. I wrote about Screams Before Silence, which is a really haunting documentary that covers similar terrain. It's powerful. It's on YouTube. You can see it for free at any time. Yeah. And I think the number of reviews for that film may be under 5 across the web. I've been searching and searching. I'm one of them. It seemed like a no-brainer to cover it. It's a very powerful film. But this isn't isolated. This is the media saying we don't want to focus on the story because heaven forbid people understand the consequences, the costs, the savagery that happened that day. It really does. The silence speaks volumes. But now you're on the college tour. I believe it's just begun. Give some impressions of what you've seen so far, reaction. It sounds like it hasn't been, you haven't seen the histrionics that I've been fearing yet, but you tell me what's been the reaction?
Well, yes, so far we was in Princeton, things went well with very heavy security. I think 3 security people inside a small theater. Like this theater held 199 people. And there was 3 burly security people that we knew of at, in the room. But this is, we should, in some ways, we shouldn't be normalizing this. We shouldn't be saying, you should be expecting security. We should be asking people, what the hell are you doing protesting the voices of people who experienced a massacre, who, if Hamas had the right numbers, they would have experienced a genocide. I mean, if Hamas had 20,000 fighters instead of 2,000 or however many, 3,000, the many that went, it would have been a genocide. If they could have wiped out every Jew in Israel, they would have done it. That's the reality. And let's stop talking about expecting protests. Of course, I know we're journalists and that's what we have to do. We have to talk about what's there. But I suppose that in an ideal world, we should be talking about who are these people and who are their enablers and what on earth moral universe do they live in that they think it's okay to protest and try and disrupt
Mhm.
the voices of people, of victims.
Of
By the way, I
victims,
thought they
of
were,
victims,
yeah,
Yeah.
genuine
I thought
victims.
I thought they, hear every woman, hear every victim, but none
Mm,
of they're Jewish.
apparently not.
Yeah, there's been a few people, Patricia Heaton. I think Deborah Messing has been very vocal on this front. Amy Schumer initially as well. But yeah, the Hollywood silence and the silence in the theatrical community, the fact that you need such protections just to put on a show, I think that also speaks
And
volumes.
and by the way, specifically the silence of people in the music world. You know, the
Mhm.
Nova Festival, that was a music festival. There was kids there, young people there who were dancing, and doing this trance dance that they call it, where they take a lot of drugs and dance all night. The silence. Funny, you too, and I never have anything good to say about Bono, but actually he had a concert. I think it was like 2 or 3 days later, I think in Vegas, and he spoke up on behalf of the victims at the Nova Festival.
Mhm.
But I don't know if anyone else has, other than John Andrasik, obviously from Five for Fighting, who's obviously a rock star and went over to Tel Aviv and had concerts over there, and he's
Mhm.
spoken out a lot. But in general, the music community have been very, very quiet when this happened at a music festival. It is kind of extraordinary.
Yeah. Can you share maybe an anecdote where someone either saw the play in its original incarnation or maybe the Princeton showing where maybe they were skeptical of what was happening in the world, or maybe they didn't quite believe what went down on October 7th, and they saw this production and they came away a bit transformed. Have you seen evidence of that in any capacity?
Yeah, no. We had people. Who, I remember one person in New York who, it just was walking past the venue and sort of said, didn't really know much about it and went in and had that exactly what you're saying.
Mhm.
I had no idea. But I understand that because we were in Ireland on October 7th and we saw how immediately in Ireland, the media in Ireland did not talk about October 7th. They talked about the potential of Israel's response. They talked about the electricity being turned off in Gaza. And people
Hmm.
were talking about that. People weren't. And so for people, it's almost like, I remember when I started in journalism, Phelim, who was, the veteran ahead of me, said, if it's not in the newspaper, it didn't happen. And unfortunately for an awful lot of people, that's been the experience.
Yeah,
It's like it didn't happen because they didn't read about it. So they're like, what? So, you kind of like, so this is one of the reasons why the play is so important, is getting October 7th back in the headlines for people to like, what is that? What is October 7th? Because literally, I mean, obviously we're, completely enmeshed in this and, and surrounded by it. But for so many people, they really haven't heard about it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, can you give us a little preview of the colleges that are on the lineup next? And also the fact that Princeton agreed, have you been met with some resistance from the collegiate front at that point? It's kind of a two-part question, but
So far, not. No, we've done Princeton. We're doing UCLA. We are hoping to do Stanford, Berkeley, Harvard, UPenn,
Rutgers, UPenn,
Rutgers.
yeah,
Yeah, those
yeah,
are on our hit list.
yeah.
This is going to be a challenge to these institutions who say, "Oh, we've learned our lesson," you know,
yeah.
um, and let's see. I mean whether they must allow these organizations to rent the rooms.
Mhm.
They must give them security. They mustn't make them pay for their own security. They must punish and expel anyone who wants to
Disrupt.
object
Yeah.
to or try and shut down a legitimate event by an organization on the campus. I mean, this is what must happen, and if they don't, then you know, then we'll know that it's just that they're still gonna roll over and be part of the anti-Semitic movement, roll over and be be on the sides of the people in the third. As somebody said I saw it on Instagram this morning. Do you ever wonder how you'd have reacted in 1930s Germany? Well, now you know. So this is a moral. This is a wonderful moral. I wasn't the liberals say a teachable moment. This is a
Oh, yeah.
very teachable moment. So let's see how the students perform.
Yeah. I want to take a step back. When I think about pop, I mean, the work that I do covering entertainment, I do it from a right of center perspective. And there are very few names that I've been following for years now. Obviously Andrew Breitbart was a pioneer here. Andrew Clavin has been sounding the alarm that we need to get engaged with culture. We need to make art and tell stories. And the two of you, I mean, you are sort of the first wave of these storytellers. And now we're getting the Daily Wire's doing Am I Racist? And the Daily Caller's making documentaries. The Blaze has some projects afoot. I'm kind of curious, how do you see this landscape? It must be satisfying to see other people joining in your effort, but what's going right? What's going wrong? Any sort of takes about what's happening right now?
Well,
Go on, Phelim.
yeah, no, it is. It's great to see people joining in, and I just hope, I think there's still a lot to learn. I think a lot of organizations think a documentary is a bunch of talking heads, rather than a storytelling exercise. We're not learning the lessons of the left. The left are great at telling stories. The left are great at going on journeys. For example, Matt Walsh's latest Am I Racist? I mean, he looked at Borat, the success of Borat and the success of Michael Moore, and mimicked it, where he skewers the public figures, where he skewers the Angelos and all these people. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. We need more of that, not less of it. And it's look at what the left have done and copy them. Right? They've been at this 50 years. They've been incredibly successful. Stop trying to reinvent the movie. Stop trying to reinvent the documentary. Do what they do, and you will be successful.
I think I'd also add the fact that I think it's disappointing that conservatives don't really value culture, don't value the arts. I don't 100% understand it. I haven't had it explained to me. If anyone has any intelligence at all, they will notice. It's not difficult to notice that the culture war is being won by the side that spends the money on producing content, producing storytelling at a high level. And the entertainment world is dominated by leftist messaging. It's completely dominated. There's no argument there. I suppose the only argument is, why do conservatives not think that's a fight worth fighting? Why are they spending all the money from all the large donors is spent on doing the same old that they've always done, that really doesn't change anything, doesn't move the needle even slightly, not even slightly. But then something like, literally, we've obviously had a lot of fun with, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. Look at something as simple as that. The whole world, they're singing along to that in Czechoslovakia, right? So, in Prague, right? They're like literally singing along to that all over the world. That's how art works. It cuts through everything. It's like, it's something beautiful, something fun. And suddenly everyone hears it, or something funny, and we just don't. The investment is not there, and it's very, very hard to understand. All these very clever conservative donors are really unclever and very stupid when it comes to spending money on moving the needle, basically. So do things the way we've always done, because obviously that's working out really well. Well, it's not working out that well, actually. Because every television program you turn on now, every last one will eventually have a transvestite in it. And it just happened to us the other night. We're watching something we thought it was quite good, and the next thing it's like just dropped out of nowhere, and it's just because we're going to do that. And they're doing it with climate change, and they're getting paid to do it with climate change. They're getting paid to do it. This is taking the thing seriously. And you know what? That drip feed of climate catastrophe, that drip feed of transvestites, it works. It's it's a drip. What is it? The Russians had that torture thing with this drip of water that eventually makes a hole in someone's head. Well, you know what? It does work. That little drip feed of constant messaging, it works, and that's an advantage the left have that we just aren't even bothering to take up.
But I think things are better than they used to be. We do have the Daily Wire. We do have the Irwin brothers. We do have a lot of smaller groups doing things. But I just wish they would look at what was successful and copy it. Right?
Yeah.
It's not, it's
Just
it's,
copy. Yeah.
don't
Reinvent the
people.
wheel. Yeah.
If
It's all there.
people want to go and see a movie, they want to go and see a movie, not a
Polemical.
sermon, not a sermon. They want to go to a sermon, they'll go to church, or they'll go to a political meeting. If they want a movie, they want to play.
What's
They
fun?
want also, if the documentary. I was at a documentary recently, and this person had spent years on it, but they had used the documentary to scratch 5 different itches that had been bugging them for years. So there was 5 different issues being tackled in this one documentary, and it was talking heads about every one. So it was talking heads 15 minutes about this issue, and it was very powerful. Then the next one, and by the 3rd issue, my head was spinning because I just couldn't remember half of what was said, and it was getting boring just looking at the same old talking heads. And so, Michael Moore goes on journeys. He uses archive. Look at the difference. It's entertaining. It's funny. It's emotional. And so people, if you're going to make entertainment, make it. Mm-hmm. But don't be confused about what it is.
I've spoken to so many content creators on the right side, and all they say is no one will open up their checkbooks, their wallets, their purses. Just doesn't happen. Even Kevin Sorbo does it on a very tight budget, and he's got a legacy. He's got a brand. He's got people who follow him, and he has to struggle for every penny. And there's no big benefactor that comes along and writes a check. And the ironic thing is you don't need a $50 million check. You can do it for very, very small. Yeah. I've seen some wonderful films that were under $3-4 billion. And obviously,
yeah. The Gosnell movie was, exactly around that kind of budget, and really people really, enjoyed it, inverted commas. But yeah.
I don't want to push past the play because obviously that's the main focus of what we're talking about. But do you have other sort of irons in the fire, other types of stories, other subjects you're either going to tackle next, or is this kind of all consuming at this point?
It's pretty all consuming right at the moment. Yeah. But look, just like you said there, we have other ideas, but we have a ton of great ideas, but it's all about money. Mm-hmm. It's distribution. The means Marx was wrong. It's not the means of production that controls the world. It's the means of distribution. So it's all about money and distribution. Mm-hmm. And until conservatives get serious about funding and distribution, buying distribution companies, not being happy about making something and nobody's seeing it, we need to get it out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know you both have been so prescient about the crowdfunding method of raising money. And before I let both of you go, of course, it's October7theplay.com. You can go there. You can support this cause. It's so important. It's so vital. I mean, just supporting the two of you in general matters because of all the work you've done over the years, Gosnell, Ferguson, so many great productions.
Thank you so much.
Verbatim Theater has been such a spectacular way to kind of share the story and kind of cut your critics off at the knees. And just keep doing this great work. We'll keep following you.
And I should say, and it's worth saying for people who are listening, we're a 501c3, so all donations are tax deductible. Yeah, so it's October7theplay.com. But thank you very much, Christian, for giving us the time to talk about it. The play is amazing, and really it's worth. The whole world needs to see it. We had somebody who was a Holocaust historian who came to see the play and said, "I want the whole world to see this." She thought she would hear her own heart break. And something different happened, she said. She heard the voices of resilience and hope, which was a beautiful thing to say.
Yeah. Well, thank both of you for the production, for all the work you do. And I'm sure we'll be talking again down the short road about another project. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Well, it's October. It's getting colder. The days are shrinking. And of course, that also means it's Halloween season. And I'm a Christmas guy, but Halloween season is amazing for one reason. Well, two. I do like to dress up for Halloween. Maybe I'll share my costume this year with the listeners and viewers down the road. But for now, it's time to watch some horror movies. Now, you don't need me to say, oh, go rewatch The Exorcist or The Shining or The Descent or The Omen or any of these classic horror films. They stand the test of time. They're wonderful to watch and rewatch again. Maybe introduce your kids or grandkids to them, assuming they're of appropriate ages. But I'd like to put the spotlight on 3 films that really slid under the radar over the years, and they shouldn't have. They're quality stories, they're scary, they're creepy, perfect for Halloween, but again, just didn't get the attention, the publicity of other films. Let's try to fix that, shall we? The first up is called Splinter. It's a story about a couple that is kidnapped by another couple, and the 4 characters end up holed up in a convenience store. Why? Well, not like they have to make a run for Slim Jims. Well, there's a monster outside. There's something lurking just beyond the doorway, and it's scary, and it's killing people, and it might just kill them if they don't protect themselves first.
What was that?
Move away from the glass. It tracks us somehow.
We gotta get out of this gas station.
Wait.
First, very simple spare presence. The special effects are similarly analog, I would say. I don't remember any CGI wizardry behind the scenes here. It's just old school practical effects done quite well. And to me, the star of the show is Shea Whigham. And if you don't know the name, I know you know this face. He's been everywhere the last 10, 20 years. He was in the first Joker film. He was in Boardwalk Empire. Again, great character actor. One of his juicier roles of the last maybe 20 or so years. And good for him because he's great in this movie. He plays the bad guy who's kidnapped this couple, but he's got so much charisma, you almost can't help but root for him in a way. So that's what great screen actors do. They make you enjoy and relish characters who might be despicable, but you just can't help it. So check out Splinter if you can. A quality movie. Again, low budget, slipped under that radar, but it does matter and it's good. My second recommendation is one I just rewatched and it got better the second time. It's called Backcountry, and it's based loosely on a true story about a couple in the woods hiking. There's a bit of romance in the air. This couple's very much in love. The gentleman wants to show off to his girlfriend that he knows the woods, he knows this territory. He's going to show her the best of Mother Nature. But of course, Mother Nature sometimes includes bears. And there is a bear in this movie. Spoiler alert, but though I think the poster gives that away. Now, part of the film is about their relationship and about the threats to their relationship. And I thought that was very compelling and very well written. And when the bear comes, everything changes. It is tense. It is nail-biting. It is smart. The camera work is first rate. This is the kind of movie where they make the most out of limited budget, out of certain visuals that they can share and what they can share. It's just very clever editing with those attack sequences. And yes, there is a bear attack. Again, another spoiler alert that seems rather unnecessary, but it's a very good film. Now, it's currently on Netflix, but you know, if you ever want to watch one of these films or just any film in general, I always recommend people check out justwatch.com. Now, it's not a sponsor. I'm not being paid, but it's just a good and useful website. I recommend it all the time. Just punch in the title of a movie and it will let you know you can stream it here for free. You could stream it here and pay a fee. It's on these different quality streaming services, or maybe in some sad cases, the movie is just not available at the moment. So check out justwatch.com. The third film in the series that I'm recommending is not for the faint of heart. It is grisly. I rewatched it about a year ago and I thought, man, this is tough stuff. It's called Eden Lake. And it's got a couple of people you've gotten to know and love over the years. Michael Fassbender, now a huge movie star, but he was certainly lesser known at the time. And also Kelly Riley of Yellowstone fame. Again, 2 big stars, but they got one of their first gigs in a horror movie. And of course, that's not new. One of the first gigs Kevin Bacon ever got was in Friday the 13th, all the way back in about 1980 or so. Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey starred in one of the Texas Chainsaw ripoffs. It was a very bad sequel, if memory serves. But again, it was a gig. It gave them some exposure early in their careers when they were not the big stars they are today. So that's the case with Eden Lake. It's about a couple in love, getting away in the woods. Seems like a familiar theme. I tend to like those movies. I find those settings rather captivating. And they are attacked by a group of teenagers. And the teenagers aren't like high schoolers. They're maybe middle school, maybe a little bit older, maybe 13 to 15 years of age. But boy, don't let their age fool you. They are nasty pieces of work. And they've got an agenda against anyone who's encroaching on their space, which is what this couple does. Again, this is bloody, it's gory, it's intense. So if that is not your cup of tea, I definitely recommend the first 2 films much more over this one. But maybe you're a Terrifier fan, maybe you like all those torture porn movies. If that's your cup of tea, check out Eden Lake. It's nasty, it's brutal, it's good. And again, not many people have heard about it, so check it out. Well, that's it for this week's show. By the way, if you're enjoying the Hitcast, I would hope you'd give it a share, a like, tell a friend, do things like that to kind of help spread the word here. You know, this is an independent venture. I am in the early stages of my YouTube journey. Of course, the show is also on Rumble and iTunes if you're listening to it or watching it on those platforms. So wherever you are, wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching, I do appreciate it. Well, that's it for this week. I'll be telling you about more horror films in the weeks to come. I know Terrifier 3 is opening next weekend. I'm going to see that as soon as possible. I'm trying to get a screening link so I can watch it ASAP. I don't know if I've secured that yet, but either way, I will be seeing it. I love Art the Clown. And yes, those movies are as bloody and disgusting as possible, with the exception of The Substance, which I could barely watch. It was so off-putting with its visual atrocities. I'll just put it that way, but I digress. I hope everyone has a wonderful week. I hope everyone's planning their Halloween costumes. You're never too old to dress up. It's a wonderful time of year. And I will see you next time.